bom dia.
So good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's quite a pleasure to be able to address. There are about 10 people in this room. We're going to speak about quantum communication. I'm a professor at the University of Aveiro, and I'll be introducing the panel. And with my 10 minutes, I'm going to try to say to you what are quantum technologies, how they've evolved, and why, and what is quantum cryptography, which is what we've been focusing our action on, and what are the systems that we are developing, what are the projects that we are working on, and what is the PTQCI. Now, what are quantum technologies? These are technology that we manipulate quantic states, and we want to take profit of peculiarities of the quantum theory. I'm speaking about non-cloning. What are quantic systems? Picking up on the light impulse, we will break it into light particles. And for us, these are quantic systems. That is what we manipulate, are particles. And what is the peculiarity of a light particle from a quantum theory? If we embed it in a proton, if we read that information, we're disturbing the photon. We can see if someone is listening to that aspect. Photon is very important. If there are two directions, he doesn't need to choose. He can follow both directions, and then it can interfere. And entanglement, I can take two photons, interact with them, and at that moment they become on being ruled by a wave function. I separate them, they behave as almost an only particle. Indeed, this might be a bit strange, but it's not. It's a bit of an illusion. Thinking of the electromagnetic theory, we have thousands of photons in a synchronized dance, and they're sending electromagnetic waves to our mobile phone. This is strange in relation to the quantic part. It's simply because we're not used to it. It's something that we are not used to yet. So the electromagnetic theory and the fundamentals were developed 2 centuries ago by Maxwell Faraday, then Lorentz, and several engineers in the 20th century started with disruptive theories in computers, and then there were several engineers that started truly to develop the phone, like Alexander Bell, and the computer in a very big room. People probably used computers with chips, and then with the mobile phone, this happened in 50 years before Alexander's Bell telephone, and then 100 years in a computer, and 100 years after the first computer came out, and then 150 years and the internet. So quantum theory has paved the road. And at the beginning, in the 1930s, so last century, this theory was developed. Several mathematicians also emerged with different theories. And in the 30s, we saw the first experimental system of quantum key distribution, with the first quantum computer, also the first prototype of the quantum computer launched by IBM. And at this moment, we are a century ahead. So it's time that we see more disruptive things, and this is what's happening. Not really happening, but it could be expected if we looked at the past. Now, how quantum technologies have been involved, in what areas have been focused, in addition to communications where we work in, there are 2 subdivisions. Either I try to look at communication to increase the capacity of my communication channel to send more information by using quantum technology, or to send more secure information, which is cryptography. We're going to be sending information in a more secure way, and this is what our work is based on: computing. The quantum computer is a machine which solves problems. There's a class of problems. If I want to solve them with a traditional computer, will take centuries to solve. But if it's a quantum computer, it only takes a few minutes. This is what a quantum computer. This is its power. And quantum simulation, there are systems that can simulate in a normal computer that I can now with a quantum computer. There's also another area, which is that of sensors, meteorology, and indeed I can have a greater accuracy, sensibility if I use quantum theories. So in these four pillars, the quantum theory has evolved and has been structuring itself. In our telecommunication laboratory in Ave, what do? We have three main systems in our lab. One generates random figures using the quantum theory. We use a vacuum energy. We have a high source of entropy. This is important because from that theory, I can generate randomness at a low rate, but if I want to generate at a higher rate, I need a source where I can control well the entropy. This is the generator of quantum and distribution. And then these systems that distribute key to system one that we use a photon, we manipulate its polarization, we embed it in that degree of freedom. And on the other side, we extract that information. What is the particularity of that system? If someone in the middle tries to intercept, to extract the information, the photon, the two extremes of that channel can know that someone has been listening. Very different from a traditional one. We can encrypt information, but we have no way of saying. And most of the time it happens if our information is being recorded or not. Information can be encrypted, but we really don't know if someone is storing that information. Eventually it can, but later on, might not, but later with more computational power can access to it. Another system is that of continuous variables system. What we send technically is a coherent state, and we manipulate its phase, composed by 2 or 3 photons. In terms of the projects we're working on, we have a national one financed by FCT in terms of random figures, and 2 projects that we are focusing our discussion on, which is discussion PTCI in defense, with large participation of national public entities, and 2 other European projects. One that we are leading in secure computation. What is it? It's when I send information, I don't want someone to listen to that information. Secure computations when I want to calculate something and I don't want to reveal and the data that I'm going to introduce in the calculation. For instance, simpler case, we want to know what is the amount, what's the money we have in our what's the money we have in our wallet. Nobody wants to reveal how much money they have. We all encrypt that information. Then we have a function that calculates the encrypted data, and 250 euros. Nobody really doesn't know if it is or not. Now, these are the 2 areas that we're working on in terms of establishing secure connections and secure computation. And this is going to be very important. This discussion project is on defense. Very interesting, because in addition to distributing keys, which is something important, that is using our system in the laboratory, we're going to bring it to the field. But more than that, doing so, we have to be capable of integrating it in a telecommunication grid. It's a very complex infrastructure, require a complex management control. Defining SDI, the integrated plan, quantum technology is quite important, because this means that we can bring closer the systems to reality and integrate this in telecommunication grids. There's also a key part, which is development of national cipher machines. That is, the state, all of us, that is, have a national cipher encrypted by machines, which is also relevant. Another project, which is PTCI. Now, what is PTQCI? It's a quantum network which is being installed in the European space. The EuroKCI started. It's a program, EU financing program, promoting the setting up of quantum networks in EU countries. And why? Because indeed, a quantum computer, if it's true, that will bring it will bring advantages. Bring on advantages. One of the collateral damages, it's going to attack the cryptography that we have today. That is, most of what we use today to secure, to protect our information is no longer possible once that we have a quantum computer. So the European Union is trying to anticipate that fact, launch this movement to promote the setting up of quantum networks in the European space. Portugal is also participating in this movement. The first embryo, the first nodes will be set up in Lisbon, 4 nodes, and the perspective is that the network expands initially to the district capitals and islands, and then interconnected to the quantum networks in the European space. This supposes when we install 4 networks and more than 10 kilometers, if we go on to interconnecting the district capital, it's 100 kilometers, and if we speak about islands, we're going on to thousands of kilometers. So we're going to have to use a satellite connection the same way if we want to connect to other quantum networks of European space. We have to use technology either by satellite or optical fiber. But again, an effort is being made. It's of the utmost importance because of the quantum computer presence to install a network which is developing technology. Now, that is all. I've already given some clues for this debate. This is quite interesting for all of us and all students that have worked with us, and it's a pleasure to be able to address you. Thank you very much.
Prosseguimos então e agora vamos.
So now we will start the debate. What is the level of strategic? What is Portugal's strategic level? And
Pelas respostas que espero obter dos próximos convidados.
Shielding some of the defense communication we have with this Catarina Bastos, Defense Account Manager, Manuel da Costa. Catarina, welcome to speak about these projects that Armando Nolasco Pinto just mentioned. These 2 projects, PTQCI discretion, that is, Portugal is leading these 2 projects. Therefore, it's right away, it's positive. A link to quantum infrastructures. It's marking before and after telecommunications.
Obrigada pelo convite de estar aqui.
Good morning. Thank you for the invitation to be here today. Yes, it is true. What Armando has explained is a major breakthrough in science, namely in quantum science. Now I'm in the industry, but I was an academic before. So what happened was a trilogy of success in Portugal with the emergence of 3 very important components to develop these projects. The industry that was interacting, and also to put on the ground these technologies to be used in the scope of defense, but also communications, and soon in telecommunications also. But bringing the user with us. And in contact with the National Security Office, we promoted this strategy to put on the ground this technology and this quantum networks. And this started with discretion, an European project, a pioneering project in this field, based upon a European project for innovation in defense. And Portugal grabbed this challenge, and together with 5 European companies plus defense and GNS, and also colleagues from Spain, Italy, we are defining this network and the quantum nodes to distribute the keys. Katerina, maybe it would be interesting if you would dig deeper in these 2 projects because they are still in the design phase. How will they be rolled out? Well, yes, we are in the design phase, defining the architecture of the network, and then we will have safe communications. In discretion, we're talking about military information or a tactical network. And in the case of QPTCI, it's a connection to the European quantum infrastructure and to ensure secure communications between government buildings or databases or critical infrastructures. And with this type of technology, we can have secure communication, and that we know when there's an attempt to intercept it, and also to evolve in innovation in our businesses and at the state level also. Because it does not exist between government institutions, or is it going to be reinforced? It's going to be reinforced. And this because of quantum computers. If it can solve a problem faster and break some of the existing cryptography, now we need to reinforce the security of our networks with a different type of technology. Manuel da Costa Honorato, it's the National Security Office that makes these projects progress. What kind of participation will this office have? Good morning. Thank you for the invitation. In fact, this National Security Office, which has been under the coverage of the media, processes classified info, but also solutions and products to ensure the security of that information, namely cryptography. And it's not only about defense. We also work with all public entities at large that use classified information, but also private entities, businesses, laboratories, and the academic world. So we always have this purpose of aggregation regarding safe or secure communication. In Portugal, we have several solutions or safe, secure networks, but they are like islands, and they are usually supported by technology ensured by the international organizations to which we belong to. So far, we were unable to develop a national cryptography solution. With these 2 projects, this is what we are doing. First, with discretion, using the best techniques and practices for a national cryptography capacity. It's not a single machine. It starts with classical cryptography up to a brand for the distribution of keys linked to quantum communication. And we will try to bring together the different islands of secure networks by interlinking the networks and have a single or several secure networks at the national level. QPTCI is an European project and its member states for sovereignty reasons, and obviously it should be done within the state of each of the nations. What we are doing, PTQCI, and PT is Portugal, and there will be an FR for the different member states. We're not alone doing this. And we're not alone either in the field of cryptography, because the discretion project, we have other 3 other countries working with us. I would also like to say that cryptography and everything that we are doing in the field of secure information is an holistic perspective. We look at information with special security requirements and not only classified information. When we're talking about classified information, it's not for hierarchical reasons, but also state secrets, secret of justice, bank secrecy, tax secrecy, and commercial secrecy, and also personal data. So some types of information need concrete solutions to be protected. When we hear quantum communication, we don't link it to things like you've just mentioned, and we need that guarantee of security. Indeed, we need to have this perspective. When we're talking about new technologies, they can be used, as Armando clearly stated, and he talked about the evolution of electromagnetic technologies to quantum technologies, but all technologies in the domain of telecommunications, they can be used for good and bad reasons. And quantum communication can indeed be a threat. And the use of quantum technology to protect information is, in fact, this response that we are preparing, and it's not prepared in a year or two. And if we consider that quantum communication is available since the 30s, what we're doing is that in 2030 we are ready. It's not when we get there that we can be ready. So it's something that we rely on everybody in discretion. The group is smaller, but in PTQCI, we have 13 entities working together, and there's this virtuous triangle, and that's the academic world, the business sector, and the end users, in this case, the state. When you talk about this complex way forward, we may question ourselves. What about our performance versus other European countries? Catarina, is Portugal lagging behind in this process? I don't think so. There are some countries that are quite advanced in this type of technology, namely in its implementation. Austria is a benchmark in Europe, and Spain. They have in Madrid a network with Telefónica, and they are performing tests and understanding how the technology works on the ground. And there's also an advantage here in Portugal when we got this project, and we have these experts who already had some experience, and we can also benefit in Portugal from this, and also benefit from the technology and its implementation. The discretion project is a long project. We are finishing the design phase and starting the prototyping, and the quantum nodes within description, and one will be used in PTQCI in the physical network, is being developed with the Telecom Institute and Daimus. And this is one of our flagships. We are not only leaders, but we're also trying to generate Portuguese technology. So in this specific case, we're not lagging behind. Is this unheard of, the Portuguese position in being a leader? At the defense level, yes. I have attended congresses outside Europe presenting the Portuguese case, and it has been a surprise for everybody to see how we are developing in defense with these technologies and with the support that we have domestically, and with GNS also. And GNS is also partner in PTQCI in the implementation of the European network. And I believe there's only another country that has a user within the consortium, but the GNS being a partner also in the development and implementation of the network is something which is surprising for the other countries, that we have this type of close interaction. I will ask you to be brief in your answer, because I also want to ask this to Manuel da Costa Norato. You gave the example of Austria and Spain. Why are they ahead. Is it because they always had more know-how? In the case of Austria, it's because of know-how. The physics Nobel Prize was awarded to Austria. So there's the scientific component, but also some economic support that has been given. In the case of Spain, I believe this was also because of these European projects and the European initiatives. When there's a flagship, there's a entity, a university with spearhead technology and wants to develop these networks, simplifying the implementation process of the network, as Armando said, a link to telecom giants as Telefonica, who decided to launch this network on the ground. If there is initiative and people want to put this on the ground, of course, things develop more quickly. I would also like to hear you on this. And let me ask you, how will it bring about more strategic autonomy, this network, and also taking into account the current context?
First of all, in terms of classic cryptography, we had no cryptographic aspect. Now we've missed the train, and we want to be in the forefront with quantum communication. We have to bear this in mind, and we're part of two forums working quite a lot in information security, which is the EU and NATO, which is the oldest, resulting on the doctrine, as a result of the doctrine. Now, on sovereignty, I don't want to speak about geographic, strategic importance, but more of sovereignty. To rely on sovereignty, information protection on solutions we do not control the life cycle in the greatest extension possible, controlling the life cycle in terms of solution for information security. It's always a vulnerability. Countries with our side inside of Europe or outside of Europe have already developed national cryptographic solution. Now, where are we moving forward? We've found partners in QCI BT description, which has allowed us to take huge steps in the leadership of these projects. And this brings on a guarantee, a new capacity to act that even goes beyond with the discretion project, which is clearly an R&D one, and that we want still this year to launch the industrialization phase by finding not only these partners, as I've mentioned, but finding other partners, national enterprises that can go from prototype R&D to industrialization. And this is also a huge step that is very important in telecommunications and the information area. So how can the country's sovereignty be reinforced by these two projects and this network when it will be complete? The country's sovereignty, and not all countries have such a project like ours, or a similar one. In terms of PTQCI, it's a need that had been identified by Europe at the end of the last decade, but because of COVID, and the need for secure communications like video conferences between states at a distance, accelerated this process. It was quite important, the way we work, the way we are present. Everything has changed and created many challenges. There's the Chinese expression that a crisis is an opportunity, and COVID was a calamity, a huge crisis for mankind, but also it gave us other opportunities to rethink the ways we communicate, to guarantee security, information security. This is quite important in terms of paving the road towards a society which is more digital, more secure, more aware of what are the security, privacy characteristics in society. So they walk hand in hand. Good. Since we've heard very positive aspects, what are the challenges that lie ahead, quantum communications, that lies ahead for quantum communication and concerning the projects you've just explained? There are technical challenges, and at this moment, mentioning the architecture, and there's going to be a big challenge that is to implement it, test it, to check if it's working or not. It's going to be a long process, and at the moment, for PTQCI, we're at that stage to assess the existing infrastructures. We spoke about the quantity of optical fiber that exists in our country and using the infrastructure that exists between the different ministries to try to see where the network can be implemented, nodes, and then distribute the keys at a quantic level so that afterwards the information is encrypted. And these are challenges. These are challenges on the ground. And challenges in the field. Other challenges we've been assessing, which are more dedicated to certification and standardization of this type of equipment, and then the communication which will be carried out. We have with us a startup, Portuguese startup, working on these two projects, working on certification standardization at a European level not too long ago from NATO, from working groups that does research on quantum communication, but at European level the standards are very few. This was a discussion with the European Commission at the revision meeting, that is to understand what standards will require to be implemented. But yes, at European level, all countries have grids, networks to interconnect them. As Armando mentioned, the objective is to connect all national networks. There has to be a way of them being interoperable, to be on the same level. And it seems that this is the challenge in Europe, which will strengthen the communication of these countries when they're part of that network. When will it be completed? May 2025. In the Portuguese case, for Europe, I don't know. So it will take time. Yes, European projects have 36 months to be completed, but then the objective is to continue the development. Will Portugal be more competitive at a European level or at a NATO level? Undoubtedly, Portugal is not the first example, but it has an industry that's able to strengthen competitive and excellence niches independently or with the support of the state, has been able to project itself at an international level. So we're convinced that these two areas, cryptography based on quantum technology and secure network based on quantum technology, that these will be very two important landmarks in relation to other nations. It will have a voice, and what we try is to have that voice. So it's something that it's not only something of the state of the academy and others. We try to have a common position that is economy, university knowledge with the user and authority. So this is the coordination we are been doing. This is what we are promoting, and this is what we want to do. Catherine, you want to add something else? Yes, I do. with the development evolution at the European level regarding European defense. We're also making our first steps in this flagship project with NATO. A leader, we've been leading the quantum technologies to define use cases for defense more linked to the military aspect. And at the moment, we'll be participating at a NATO conference in October to present the discussion project to the scientific community linked to NATO. So there is here an approximation to these platforms. As Mr. Honorato mentioned, Portugal will have more strength, will have a stronger voice, undeniably. What is quantum computing's role in that process? Can it complicate? Is it a challenge? Is it an advantage? Those working more on communication, it's an opportunity or a motivation, because if something brings problems to our communication so that we're not able to commute in a secure way, we need to develop more technologies to contradict that aspect. And also in terms of cryptography, by developing other products, not only linked to quantum communication with the key quantum distribution. There are many countries moving more towards the post-quantum algorithms, which are more secure, allowing us to address the quantum challenges, the capacity to develop cryptography. Can you explain what is the power that it's something which is very important? What is Portugal's role in that dimension? Portugal has been present for many years, not with its own means, but with this project, it has more means. And the national cryptographic aspects is like a family. The first device is ready. The father of that device, of the algorithm approved for Portugal, certified, accredited, and we have a device which is the beginning of a family. It's like a matchbox connected to a secure computer, a file encrypted, and it could be sent by email, confidentially, and so on. It allows, for instance, also to communicate between entities of critical infrastructures that more and more have are quite important at an EU level. This cryptographic capacity will be spread out, and in the next months to come, the version 2 of that product, proof of concept, it's much more effective, much more secure, will be distributed to the key users. And it's not only defense, there are different key users for governmental areas that need that product so as to be able to perform their tasks. And at the top, the machine with quantum technology, and then at an intermediate level, other machines. So this cryptography at a national level is the one which will allow us to safeguard our national interest, and not only safeguard them based on technologies which are common to the organizations we belong to. This is quite a jump, and to make these solutions be used in a more massive way, and that's why we have the secure network, secure information, secure technology. And then Portugal will be at another sovereignty threshold in terms of information security.
Isto que estamos aqui a conversar, fazer com que Portugal
Catarina, what we're discussing to make Portugal and businesses to be less times the target of cyber attacks, it may
Parte mais governamental, mais da defesa, mas a ideia é exatamente progredir.
The project is more linked to defense now, but it can evolve. For example, the first more commercial use cases might target banks, insurance companies, so that they can more safely share information. This more commercial part for businesses will come up later on with the industrialization of these products. But given that the first user is the National Security Office, it's the government, the defense sector, this provides a different reliability to the product when we're talking about the product being used by a company using this technology, because it needs to share information in a safe way. Katarina was talking about the complexity of organizing this European network. I decided not to go into geopolitics, but can geopolitics influence the development of this network? Yes, of course. Can I make a comment to Katarina's previous intervention? In our office, we also have the National Cybersecurity scope. These are two missions. And cryptography, just to give you an example, and how it can help in cybersecurity.
Está previsto a utilização da solução.
What is foreseen is to use the national cryptography solution for cryptography operators together with the National Cybersecurity Center. Today, we have difficulty in finding solutions that covers vulnerability incidents between the operators and the center, and this indeed will help a lot. Regarding your question specifically, obviously, when I talk about sovereignty, sovereignty is within overall perspective, and threats to information in an increasingly digitalized, globalized world is something that is omnipresent. And this is also a reaction. It's not the only one. There are more. But this is also a reaction to this globalization in the world. Information today has no distance. We are as distant from Spain as we are from New Zealand, information-wise. And this is a geostrategic and geopolitical reality that we are aware of. Can you be faced with certain resistance from countries regarding this management of each country's defense? Each country will take care of its own geostrategic and geopolitical interests. And this will be done independently or within an alliance. But the world has always been like this. The war is probably one of the, warfare is one of the oldest activities of the human being. And we're not expecting a transformation of human nature to prevent this type of conflict. Katerina, the world is developing and steps are being given to a dimension where quantum communication can be increasingly closer to those people who never thought about quantum communication and quantum computing. There are several people following this Congress in different platforms, not only here. So what would be interesting to talk about for a younger target? Well, there's the part that we've already talked about. Will this be available, this technology, for common people? Maybe not in the near future, but it's being planned. There are some developments. We've talked a lot about the European case, but the Chinese, they are very developed, and they have already established communication with the satellite, and they claim they have some mobile phones that use this type of communication although this is a bit dubious. So the industrialization of the products will probably take place later on. But what might be interesting for those hearing us, this type of projects that we're developing in Portugal and this strategy can be very interesting at the academic and industry level because innovation is being promoted, in particular in the field of digitalization. And sometimes we have people from the academic world with a PhD, and they have training in this area, and they are working in a business environment where the technology is being developed and implemented on the ground. So there is a capacity building of our academic world and industry so that people can learn more and be trained in other areas. And this is fascinating, and it's changing communication in Europe and in the world. Manuel da Costa Honorato, one last question. Did the war speed up this process? You were saying we're lagging behind. Katerina agreed. I would like to ask, this war in the Ukraine that started about 1.5 years ago, has it speeded up the need and the importance of secure communications? Well, both projects started before the war, so it didn't speed up, but it's made clearer for the society the importance of secure information.
Com edifícios destruídos.
There's the war we see on the news, but there's a virtual war behind it, and that's in the domain of information. Not only the news, but also tactical strategic information level. This war is a factor that justifies and provides context to some of these threats. Thank you so much. I would like to thank you, Catarina Bastos and Manuel da Costa Honorato. It was a pleasure to share this debate. And now, João, let's continue. And the next topic is cybersecurity.